In this tutorial, we will talk more about std_cout, which we used in our Hello World program to output the text Hello World to the console. We will also explore how to get input from the user, which we will use to make our programs more interactive. The input-output library, or the IO library, is a part of the C++ standard library that deals with the basics input and output. We will use the functionality in this library to get input from the keyboard and the output data to the console. The IO part of the Iostream stands for input-output. To use the functionality defined within the Iostream library, we need to include the Iostream header at the top of any code file that uses the content defined in the Iostream, like so. The Iostream library contains a few predefined variables for us to use. One of the most useful is std_cout, which allows us to send data to the console to be printed as text. Cout stands for character output. std_cout can not only print text, it can also print numbers, print the value of variables, and to print more than one thing on the same line, the insertion operator can be used multiple times in a single statement to concatenate or link together multiple pieces of output. So if we open our program from the last time, you see I have done some modification to it again. And let's ask the question, what would you expect this program to print? If we run our program, you might be surprised at the result. It printed our two lines in one line. Separating output statements didn't result in separating lines of output on the console. If we want to print separate lines of output to the console, we need to tell the console to move the cursor to the next line. We can do that by outputting a new line. A new line is a specific character or sequence of characters that moves the cursor to the start of the next line. One way to output a new line is to output std_endl, stands for std_endline. If we run our program now, we will see both of those lines printed on separate lines on the console. Just like that. There is a piece of information worth noting it here. std_cout is buffered. What do I mean by that? Consider a roller coaster ride at your favorite amusement park. Passengers show up at some variable rate and get in line. Periodically, a train arrives and boards passengers, up to the maximum capacity of the train. When the train is full, or when enough time has passed, the train departs with a batch of passengers, and the ride commences. Any passengers unable to board the current train wait for the next one. This analogy is similar to how output sent to std_cout. Statements in our program request that output be sent to the console. However, that output is typically not sent to the console immediately. Instead, the requested output gets in line and is stored in a region of memory set aside to collect such requests, called a buffer. Periodically, the buffer is flushed, meaning all of the data collected in the buffer is transferred to its destination, in this case, the console. This also means that if your program crashes, aborts, or is paused for debugging purposes, for example, before the buffer is flushed, any output still waiting in the buffer will not be displayed. Using std_endline is often inefficient, as it actually does two jobs. It outputs a new line, moving the cursor to the next line of the console, and it flushes the buffer, which is slow. If we output multiple lines of text ending with std_endline, we will get multiple flushes, which is slow and probably unnecessary. When outputting text to the console, we typically don't need to explicitly flush the buffer ourselves. C++ output system is designed to self-flush periodically, and it is both simpler and more efficient to let it flush itself. To output a new line without flushing the output buffer, we use /n inside either single or double quotes, which is a special symbol that the compiler interrupts as a new line character. /n moves the cursor to the next line of the console without causing a flush, so it will typically perform better. /n is also more concise to type and can be embedded into existing double-quoted text. Getting back to our program, instead of using endl, I will use the /n. This will give us the same result, but in a much more efficient and optimized way. If we run our program, we should see the same result as the previous time. stdcn is another predefined variable in the Iostream library. Whereas stdcout prints data to the console, stdcn, which stands for character input, reads input from keyboard. We typically use the extraction operator to put the input data in a variable, which can then be used in a subsequent statement. Let's make a simple application that demonstrates the use of stdcn. Let's first ask the user to enter a number. And then let's get the number from the keyboard and store it in a variable named x. And then let's print the input x back again to our console. If I entered 5 and then typed enter, it will tell me the number I gave it, which is 5. stdcn is also buffered. I will demonstrate this using the following program. So if we open our program from the last time, I'll modify it so it takes 2 numbers instead of 1. We will run our program 2 times. So I will type in 4 and then press enter, and then I will type 5 and press enter. So it outputs 4 and 5, which is pretty expected. But if we run our program a second time, and this time I will type in 4 and then a space and then 5. If we press enter, it will take them as if we input them in 2 separate lines. But why is that? So in the first run, when stdcn for the variable x is encountered, the program will wait for input, enter the value 4, and then the input 4/n goes into the input buffer, and the value 4 is extracted to the variable x. When the stdn for the variable y is encountered, the program will again wait for the input, enter the value 5, the input 5/n goes into the input buffer, and the value 5 is extracted to the variable y. Finally, the program will print that you entered 4 and 5. There should be nothing surprising about this run. In the run number 2, when stdcn for the variable x is encountered, the program will wait for input, enter 4 and then space and then 5. The input 4 space 5/n goes into the input buffer, but only the value of 4 is extracted to the variable x. Extraction stops at the space. When stdcn for the variable y is encountered, the program will not wait for the input. Instead, the value of 5 that is still in the input buffer is extracted to the variable y. The program then prints that you entered 4 and 5. Note that in the run 2, the program didn't wait for the user to enter additional input when extracting to the variable y, because there was already prior input in the input buffer that could be used. And that is why stdcn is buffered, because it allows us to separate the entering of input from the extract of input. We can enter input once and then perform multiple extraction requests on it. Hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, and see you later. Goodbye.